Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Looks Like We Made It. I'm Issy Howell and I'm joined by Managing Director and Creative Industry Expert Chris to talk all things video marketing. We are the father and daughter who run the video production company Howell Film, and each week we will be discussing all sorts like what happens behind the scenes on our projects, getting results from your video content, how to start using video in your business, and plenty more to come. We're always up for candidly conversing about creativity. On this episode we are answering the question, should you shoot stuff on the fly? So without further ado, let's get started, and of course never miss an episode. What? Stop!
Sorry,
never miss an episode every Tuesday by giving us a follow or subscribe, as well as finding Howell Film on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. Let's go.
Well,
what was
sorry,
that
I jumped
about?
in. Well, I immediately thought, should you shoot stuff on the fly? It just sounded funny, that was all.
Well, I haven't got my teeth in,
No,
so
exactly.
pretty sure. Yeah, what does that mean? When we say shoot stuff on the fly, we don't mean actual flies. What does that mean?
No, you're talking about literally having an idea, taking your camera out, filming some stuff, coming back, see what you've got, and try and make a film out of it.
Yeah, the truth is, at what point do you think about the edit? At what point do you sit there and you go, I've recorded some stuff, I need to put it together?
Okay. Well, I'm not going to use my catchphrase at this point.
Well, I'll use it. It depends.
Excellent. It depends. So I would always argue, if it's something that you, if it's a really important, well thought through, which it should be, real, strategic bit of film work, you should be thinking about the edit before you think about anything. You should think about the finished product as part of the initial creative brief. And the notion of turning up at a client's place or a place you've hired or a studio or whatever with a bunch of cameras and some people and thinking you're just going to be able to just film something and everything will be all right on the night is a flawed concept.
Yeah.
However, if you know there's going to be something visually appealing, like, I don't know, an air show or some parade in town or some, something happening, and you know it's going to be really interesting to film, and you can't really say, well, this bit of action is guaranteed to happen at this point and this thing's bound to happen at this point. Well, then, yeah, take your camera along, get some stuff in the can, get some interesting angles, capture what's going on, and then think about how you're going to make a film. But I think the two are quite different. I think there's a difference between a well thought through creative enterprise and a let's go out with our camera and film what we see. Well,
I think certain projects demand having some kind of plan, and certain projects benefit from not having a plan at all. Like, to go off what you're saying, because working in pre-production and doing any kind of preparation for a project, often it does depend on how much you want to control the outcome, I suppose. So if we're doing a TV advert or an advert for a business, whatever it may be, you have to really control that environment to make sure their audience sees them at their best. So you make sure that, things are cleared away, that people are dressed the right way, that the set looks correct, that the story is there, that there's a storyboard, and you really prepare and you build the narrative, I suppose, if there is one to follow. But when it comes to anything like event filming, I'm pointing a lot, so
I can see you pointing.
I'm pointing at you. When it comes to event filming, often it benefits from, or vlogging as well as a good example, might benefit from that element of chaos. And by that, I mean, as a good example would be when we filmed the UCI Road World Championships back in 2019, because that was a really interesting shoot that we went with the expectation that the route was going to be a specific way. So it's a big bike race that went through the centre of Yorkshire. And we went there with the expectation that the route would be a specific way. We got filmmakers at specific points on that route. But then what happened that made it go in a different direction?
Terrible weather.
It literally rained it was like the heavens opened. It was like Poseidon himself came to visit the race. So
you're saying by being flexible, you had to adapt on the fly, do something different than you planned.
Yeah. So what happened? What happened on that shoot?
Well, it involved me sort of on my hands and knees in a puddle, I think, and it was all a bit kind of hair raising. But in a sense, though, when you're shooting an event like that, to throw it back at you, you don't really know. You kind of got an idea. There's going to be a bunch of guys and women cyclists whipping past, and they're going to be sort of lycra clad and going fast, and there's going to be a lot of visual stuff to look at.
Yeah.
You can't plan like, so say if it was a movie of a bicycle race, you could say, right, I want the guy in the red jacket at the front, I want this person here, we want a whole bunch at the back here, and you can plan what's going to happen, and you can also make them go back and do it again because it's a movie.
Yeah.
When you're actually filming a real event that's really happening, and you're there just to capture that moment in time, well then by definition you just shoot what's happening. And you're right, on that occasion we were, we had to think on our feet, we had to shift people around, fly around in cars, get into position for the new route, and do all that sort of stuff.
Mountain Rescue got involved at one point.
Mountain Rescue did get involved, but that's for another podcast. But what I mean is that you can't control that, so you can only use your expertise, i.e. you've got to have the right, got to have the right camera, you've got to have the right lens, you've got to kind of position yourself so that you can frame what you best think is going to happen in terms of like, the way that it's visually going to happen. But I think that's quite different to, if you can control it and you know what it is you're trying to achieve. I think that's an important difference.
Yeah.
And if a client comes and says, I would like a promo about my business, it's our role to understand what their business is. It's our role to best get a feel for their product, get a feel for their service, get an understanding of the environment they work in. And that's where, when you said, you got to make sure that everything's cleared away, because you end up in a strange thing that most desks aren't always perfectly clean, and they aren't all
ours aren't.
Ours certainly aren't. But what I mean is that you then take on a kind of like a storyteller's role. You then take on a kind of like, you control that environment. And also things like, you it's not just kind of like that, the way that it looks visually in terms of like what's in the shot. You've got to think about the lighting. You've got to think about, who else is in the shot, what's going to happen in the background. Is there something that's actually, is there, I don't know, a double-decker bus going to appear through the window,
as in past it,
as or driving straight past it, or as they, So I think that it's important to have a good understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve before you achieve it creatively and as part of the narrative, and B, to be able to control the environment as much as possible when you're there.
Because I think, I agree, because as an editor and as the person who edited said UCI Road World Championship film, was that I experience both sides of the story. I both experience when we have a real set brief, when we have a storyboard or a shot list, and we're not allowed to stray away from that whatsoever. And as an editor, all the creativity is kind of done before you even edit it, because the editing process is a bit like doing a puzzle and knowing where all the pieces go, because you just kind of do it because you know what it's meant to look like at the end. But there is a level of excitement that comes from having a bit more of a shoot on the fly job, whereas an editor, you have a lot of different parts and it's up to you to put that story together. Because again, that shoot, the bike race, I'm going back to it again, is a good example, because yes, the client, we could have turned around and gone, oh, the weather was terrible, it's really rainy, it looks a bit wet, and it's not the beautiful sunny day we're expecting. Instead, we turned that narrative entirely on its head, and that edit, the final film, was all about how that client was up for anything, that the people at that show were up for anything, and they stood in the rain and did it all. And that really did reflect a great way on that client. But it was the process of just looking at a lot of footage that, when it's just footage, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but being able to build that narrative in post is also quite an exciting thing. I
agree. And also the professionalism and the creativity of the filmmaker to say, hang on a minute, I'm going to get a camera really down low and I'm going to do some super slow-mo of a bike wheel going through a puddle with throwing up water in the air. That's that's the X factor, because
Yeah.
that's the filmmaker thinking on the fly and thinking, actually, the narrative's changed slightly. It's not just going to be a hot sunny day with a bike going over the top of the moors. They're going to go a different direction. There's going to be puddles. There's going to be lots of rain. What's going to be visually engaging for the audience when they see this film? And let's use that, as you say, let's use that to our advantage. And I think, again, that's the difference between people that do this for a living, people that do this as you know, as the only thing that they do, is quite different to perhaps the hobbyist, or perhaps people who just go out and just take some stuff on their phone.
Yeah, and also filmmakers are, I mean, that bike race, for example, you don't want to hear the audio from the cyclists, as we were that close to the wheels, where, you know, they're willing to sort of do what they need to do to get the shot. I mean, you were in a ditch at one point.
I was in a ditch. So but I do think that it is still important to get to fire off the kind of the creative ideas, fire off the kind of like, have a good understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve wherever possible before you achieve it.
I mean, go for it.
No, I was going to say, so as an editor, so when you you got your team of editors, and do you prefer a project that is all defined, i.e. all storyboarded, everything's defined, every shot's beautifully done, we do every shot, perhaps for a TV advert or kind of a big promo, we would perhaps do every shot 2 or 3 times, we do lots of different angles, but you know how it all bolts together because you've seen the storyboard and you've seen the shot list? Or do you prefer a kind of like, here's a load of footage, some of it's a bit off the wall, some of it's a bit kind of like a bit out there? Do you prefer that as a kind of creative? Is that more of a creative challenge, and do you prefer it than a very prescribed shot list to follow?
Well, it depends.
Hey.
I'm taking after my dad here. So yeah, it does depend, because I love it when a filmmaker skips into the office, hands me a hard drive and goes, I am buzzing. This is the best stuff I've ever gotten. I saw this amazing thing happening and I got it, and I'm so excited for you to see it. And oh my God, there was this other thing here and it was amazing. And oh, I got this and this. And you just bounce off that energy, and you know that the event was good, or the shoot was good, the filmmaker's happy, and the content is going to look really good. When I'm excited to see that footage, I know that what I'm putting together is going to be really good. If you get someone kind of slinking in and handing you a card going, I've got a bunch of random things, I'm not sure what to do with them, then you kind of get a little bit more nervous, because there has to be some kind of plan that's gone into it originally. Normally, if we're showing up to a shoot, we'll know what the message is, what the output is, what it is we're filming. So that gives us some direction. But I think it's hard as an editor to be given a bunch of random parts that have no meaning whatsoever. So I think regardless of the process, there should have been some thought happening at some point. Even if I'm given the brief of make this look really cool, or make this look like an event we want to go to, or make this look really exciting, that's something I can work off. But I think when you have absolutely no brief, no idea, and that doesn't happen to us really at all, that is often when the alarm bells start going off, because then you don't really know where you're going. I think editors always need at least a canvas to work on, essentially. But there is that, so that I do like the creative challenge of being able to make something, and that's when editors come into their own, when we can use all our skills and our pace and music, and we can throw it all at the wall and go a bit mad, and that just looks great. Storyboarding stuff and working off a tight storyboard and stuff, while it isn't as creatively challenging for the editor, often I get involved with the storyboarding anyway, so that editing process happens before for me anyway.
So it's like a pre-edit edit.
Yeah, so I'm still involved in the edit, but not in front of my computer. So it's a completely different time when I would be being creative. But when you are working to a storyboard, yes, the actual putting together of the film isn't as exciting because you kind of know what to expect. It does mean you can use other creative techniques. I can really, really focus on the color correction. I can really focus on making those shots look spectacular. I can do other things and commit more time to other things that I might not have time to do if I'm only focused on the assembly. So it's Depends.
It depends. Yeah. Well, I think that is the buzzword t-shirts.
Hashtag it depends.
Hashtag it depends. So what we're saying then is that depending on the actual objective, i.e., we're making a 30-second advert versus we're making a 5-minute promo, will definitely alter the way that we think the thing's going to look and feel, and the approach the filmmaker's going to make when they're making the sort of the pre-edit part of the actually filming the thing. Because again, that's the other thing, isn't it? That we come across time and time again that timing is an elastic thing. That we know that 99% of the TV work we do for advertising is 30 seconds, and you've got to, and you can tell quite a long story. You can tell a lot in 30 seconds, but generally speaking, they are the most defined pieces of work we do time wise. Clients often approach us and go, "We would like a 6 to 8 minute promo making, or we would like a 10-minute promo, or we'd like a," and actually you think to yourself, have you any idea? Go and watch, literally go and watch 8 to 10 minutes of promotional material. You will have had enough after 4.
Yeah.
And I think that we spend a lot of our time with clients saying, well, actually, you don't want a 5-minute promo. Well, you might want a 5-minute promo. What you actually need, what will actually benefit your business or organization more, is probably a 2 to 3 minute tops promo that is properly specced out, properly paced. You can say an awful lot in that time.
Yeah. And it's easy for, and this goes for any marketing materials, I suppose. Whenever it's anything creative, it's easy to make stuff for yourself and not for your customer. So you could make something that you think and you would sit and watch as the business person, as the owner of the business, or whatever. You might make something that you would sit and watch and you think, God, I love that, and all my friends love this, and my colleagues love this, and that's great. That's a really good start. But you have to think, is my ideal customer gonna love this just as much? And they might be a completely different person. They might have completely different likes and dislikes and attention spans, and just because you will willingly sit for 10 minutes and watch something about yourself doesn't necessarily mean other people will. So really making sure that when you're doing anything marketing wise, even if it's film or not, is thinking, is this for me or is this for the person I'm selling to?
The end user.
Well,
that's an interesting point, because we do have these conversations with clients on a fairly regular basis where we surprise them by saying, well, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Not that, actually we will sort of put our foot down at times and say, well, that's a really sort of flawed concept you've got there.
Yeah.
And actually don't promote your funeral director business with balloons and and a tambourine, because it's probably not going to quite work on this occasion. Yeah. And I think that's
ever happened. So.
No, but that's an extreme case. But what I mean is that our role in this isn't just to blindly do what the client says, because that's a weird scenario, isn't it? That they hire a professional and then you ask them for their opinion of the professional's work, which is great. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, and all art and all creativity is subjective. But ultimately, you don't stand over your car mechanic saying, "Oh, I'm surprised you've used that tool for that, and I'd have used a vice grip on that nut and not a whatever." In a sense that it's a weird environment to work in the creative industry, because the irony is the least qualified people to have an opinion are the ones that you want their opinion. You seek their opinion, and the irony is they probably don't know anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do find yourself falling into that trap where you're thinking about what you like versus your audience, that's where the tail wags the dog a little bit in that respect. And I think that, and the best thing you can do, I mean, obviously marketing strategies, branding, all of these things, you don't just do them once. It's a bit like someone said, you spend your entire adult life cleaning your kitchen, and it's very true. Like, even if you've got a takeaway, you're still cleaning your kitchen. It doesn't matter what you do, you're always cleaning your kitchen. And it's the same with marketing. You shouldn't stop. You should always keep refreshing it, keep looking at it, keep researching. So doing that market research, doing that keeping a real close eye on what your customers want should be something you don't just do once. You should do it regularly, every few months, every year. And within that, if at any point you realize, oh, actually, this stuff I'm making is really just for me and it's not really doing very well, is check yourself, go back, talk to your customers, put things in front of ideal customers and say, what do you think of this? Give me your opinion, because that will really keep you on the straight and narrow in that respect. And yeah, you are always cleaning your kitchen.
I'm interested in this clean your kitchen concept.
It's true, though.
Is that your definition of adulthood? That when you actually decide that you actively want to go out and clean your kitchen.
Yeah, you never stop. It's always it doesn't it's a job that is never ending.
Okay, so is this a question is this something that is this a well-known phrase that I'm just not privy to? Or is this something you've made up?
It's something it's one of those things that I like to call shower thoughts. Things that when you're in the shower you go, what the hell?
I always
you
should clean your shower while you're in there.
No, it's true though. But it's one of those things where it's a task that's never done, and you think it's done, and you think, oh, I'm going to sit back, but then you do anything, and you'll need to do it again. Like it's something that's an ongoing thing that's always going to have to be on your to-do list.
Okay.
But, yeah, your
right,
face.
So we've gone off message slightly again.
No, but what I'm trying to say is...
Yes, I know what you're saying. Yes, it's never done.
It's never done.
No.
But it's not something you can just do once and go, that's sorted, and then just leave it.
No.
Because it's something that has to be constantly maintained, constantly checked up on. So when you're doing any production work, any campaigns or whatever it may be, it's just to keep focused on what your customers want and keep checking back on it all the time. You should always have a finger on the pulse in that respect, because otherwise...
I appreciate what you're saying, that you don't necessarily... we're not making a film for them. We're making a film for their audience.
Totally,
These are different people.
And so back to the question of should you film stuff on the fly? What is your answer?
When it's appropriate, you should. When it's not appropriate, you shouldn't.
Absolutely, and I agree with that.
And I live on this fence, and I'm going to stay on this fence, and I'm not going to get off under any circumstances.
It's the it depends fence.
It's the it depends fence.
Right, I'm going to throw it to you now. Do you want to put everyone in pedant's corner, or are you okay for today?
I don't know if I've got any pedantry today.
Excellent.
I'm all out of pedantry. Trying to think if there's been anything. Well, I should have had one lined up, shouldn't I?
Excellent. Well, we're not going to pedant's corner, but I'm going to ask you one final question to round off this.
Oh God, I can't believe I've got no pedantry.
Well, you got to stock up on your pedantry. My question to you is, would you rather be spontaneous or be planning everything? Do you like to be spontaneous, or do you like to just have a plan for everything that you do?
I think you need a very big plan, which is kind of like
an overall,
a bit of a sort of big ticket plan, like kind of like you've got to have an idea of what your life's about in some shape or form. But inside that bubble of your big plan, you should be spontaneous as a creative person.
Wow, because I'm not spontaneous at all. I quite like a plan. I've got my diary that I live very close to.
I know you are but then you work in a highly structured. You have to work in a highly structured, planned way. And to be fair, we all have to. We all come kicking and screaming to a certain extent. And by spontaneous, I don't mean I just decide
pack up and go.
Just pack up and go. I'm not going to bother coming to work for a year. But in reality, though, you might think, actually, I might give that a go, or I might look at that, or you might, there's always an angle, there's always something different, there's always something. And I think spontaneity, and I will never be able to say that again, does have its place. Mm-hmm. And I think that you should be able to go, actually, I'm going to give it, like I've just repeated myself. See?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, well, that's a spontaneous answer.
Spontaneous answer.
Yeah. Well, no, it's true. And I think, that's it. It's. I think particularly after the pandemic, people have been a lot more spontaneous, have been like, we're free, let's go do something.
Yeah. And I think that that is also a double-edged sword for any creative person or any kind of creative interaction you have, that almost like if somebody's so buttoned up and planning orientated and super structured, there's almost like, well, by definition, that kind of is not what you're looking for as a kind of ideas, seat of your pants style creative person.
I like controlled spontaneity. It's like,
is there such a thing?
There is now. It's a new theory, which is that you can...
What, you put in your diary to be spontaneous?
Yes, at 3 p.m. No, so like, I don't know, if I don't know, I'll put somewhere like I'm going to Leeds for the day or something, or I'm going here for the day. You don't necessarily have to put where you're going and what you're doing. You just, while you're there, you be spontaneous, you try things, you go places. It's you're going to be somewhere.
Yeah, I can see that spontaneous light, isn't
Controlled spontaneity.
Yeah.
That's what we're ending on.
Whereas you don't just get up in the morning and go, I'm going to set off driving, and where I end up is where I end up.
No, because I'll always end up somewhere rubbish.
Yeah, well, exactly. There is that, isn't there?
I'd end up in like a petrol station somewhere.
So I think that we're back to back on the fence. I think that if it's part of a big strategy and it's something that you've got to plan, then you should plan. But if it's something that you can't control, but you think there's a good chance that it's going to be visually engaging, you should get out there and give it a go.
Absolutely, and always give it a go. That's what we say. So so that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed that, and never miss an episode every Tuesday by giving us a follow or subscribe. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, obviously please leave us a review. And we've been getting some really nice feedback, actually, haven't we? We're doing very well, so that's been very nice. Thank you. And you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, or on www.howellfilm.co.uk, and Howell Film on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. And we will see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.